there you are. Just kidding. I have no idea who you are, but I'm glad that you're on my channel. If you haven't seen any of my previous videos, introduce myself again. My name is Karen. I've lost 111 pounds since January of 2015. And today I want to talk to you about something that I'm extremely passionate about. It's my lifestyle at this point. It's called IIFYM, if it fits your macros, flexible dieting, macro counting, however the hell you want to say it. It has like 20 million names. But basically, it's just a more detailed way to count calories. So I'll just start off by saying, like, what the hell is a macro? Macro is the shortened term for macronutrient. It means, basically, macro means large, so large nutrient group that you need to get in. So there's 3 macros: fats, carbs, and proteins. Any food is going to be made up of those things, as well as micronutrients, which is going to be like your vitamins, your minerals, fiber, sodium, like that kind of stuff, electrolytes, all of that goodness. But your 3 main groups are proteins, fats, and carbs. So when people say that they're counting macros, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about looking at the nutrition information inside of a food and going based off of that. For example, my favorite yogurt has 0 grams of fat, 9 grams of carbs, and 12 grams of protein. So instead of looking at how it has 80 calories, I look at how it has that breakdown. Now, macros are calories. It's kind of like how, a dollar bill and then change, coins, but it's all money, right? So calories are the dollar bill, the big picture, and then what makes up the dollar bill, the coins, are the macronutrients. Does that make sense? I hope so. And since you can't answer me, I'm just going to assume it does and keep on going. So, part of the reason why you want to count macros versus just counting calories, there's a few reasons, but one of the reasons that I gave it a try was I found out that the FDA, the US FDA, I don't know where you're from, but in the US, the FDA allows food companies to fudge their nutrition information, not the macronutrients listed, but the calories listed. So if you pick up a package and it says, say it has like 100 calories in it, if you look at the macronutrients, sometimes it doesn't actually add up to be 100 calories. It'll add up to be more. Now, how you determine like how much a macronutrient is worth: 1 gram of carbs is 4 calories. 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. So as you can see, fat is the densest? That's not a word. Most dense macronutrient group of the 3, meaning that you get the least volume and the most calories for it. So basically, when you consume these macros, you're just thinking about your calories in a different kind of way. Now, why? Like, why bother to think about your calories in a different kind of way? Like, calories in versus calories out, that's how you lose weight. And I completely agree, absolutely. Now, what macro counting does is it brings it up to the next level where you can really target body composition, i.e. losing body fat while maintaining muscle or even gaining muscle if you're like me and you're still in a stage of what the fitness industry calls newbie gains. That's usually about the first 2 years after you start your initial like lifting and strength training and all that kind of jazz. So you have about 2 years where your muscles are pretty much in shock and you're just making all the gains and not having to eat all the food in order to do it. Because normally you would need to be eating a caloric surplus to be making muscle, not in a caloric deficit. However, with, like I said, newbie gains, I'm gaining muscle while losing fat, which is difficult to do, but not impossible. So that's one reason why you would want to count macros, to streamline your body composition. You're interested in becoming more muscular or toned, for you ladies out there that prefer that term, but muscular, toned, defined, however the hell you want to say it. You want your shape to show, and you're tired of jiggling. Because a lot of times when you're losing weight, in general, you are losing body fat, but you're also losing muscle mass. And the reason that you're losing muscle mass is because the first store of macronutrient that your body uses as energy is carbs. Then it turns to protein, i.e. muscle inside your body. Then it turns to stored fat to like use for fuel. So first it'll go for carbs. If you have no carbs left in your system, it'll turn to protein. Once it exhausts its resources of protein, not like it's going to liquefy all your muscles, but once it exhausts your protein stores, then it'll turn to fat stores. So by counting macros, you can really manipulate the ratios of nutrients that you're consuming and suit it to fit your body. For example, I have a high carb, low fat ratio for my body. That's what helps me to lose or really like maintain weight, but lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time. However, I know a good amount of people that have a higher fat, lower carb ratio. I'm not really mentioning protein because when you're counting macros, your protein is pretty much dependent upon what your body weight is and what your training regime is. Like, are you going 6 days a week, super hard in the gym? Do you like never work out? All of those kinds of things. But the point is that you want to have your body be fueled by the food so that it doesn't turn to internal stores of muscle mass, protein, for fuel. And instead, once it runs out of carbs, you're hoping that it'll consume fat instead. I really hope this is making sense. It's a little bit complicated. I first learned about it during my certification for personal training course. They went pretty in depth with it. This is a pretty widely respected dieting technique. So, I mean, I learned a lot about it. I was really interested and I thought I would just give it a try. So how I started out was just pretty much the same way that I started out when I was first tracking food, by just tracking what I was eating and seeing where I was at. And where I was at personally was consuming like 80 grams of fat. Now I was still maintaining like a 12 to 1300 calorie a day, calorie a day, like consumption, like intake, but 80 grams of fat is so high of a percentage of those total calories. That's what, I should know math here. Come on, I used to be a substitute teacher. What's happening here? 8 times 9 is what? 72? That's not right. Is that right? 64 plus 6 plus, I think it's 72. So 720 calories out of 1200 just coming from fat. So that's over a 50% of my daily calories were coming from fat. That's a lot. That's a lot of unnecessary fat in my body that my body is not using as its primary source of fuel. As I said, primary source of fuel is going to be carbs, then protein, then fat. So I was taking in all of this fat that my body wasn't needing at the time. So what is it going to do? Store it. So when I figured out that I was taking in that much fat, I was pretty, first of all, shocked, and second of all, a little bit grossed out because fat is fat and I'm trying to get away from fat. So after some research and a little bit of experimenting, like trial and error, seeing how my body kind of responded to what, I discovered that what I do best on is a low fat, high carb ratio. So right now my fat consumption is between like 20, it's usually around 20%. Sometimes it drops to like 19, just depending on the day and how closely I hit my macros, or sometimes it's up to like 22, but really right in there for the 20%. Fair warning, you never want to go below a 15% fat consumption of your total calories. You never want your calories to be less than 15%. At that point, you are messing with your hormone regulation. You can suffer from hair loss. You can suffer from just like brain, cognitive functions won't be as good. Your organs won't be functioning as well. Fat is definitely a necessary component of your diet, absolutely, but in moderation, at least for me. Now, higher carb, for me, my carb ratio to my protein and fat, I believe my carbs are about 60% of my total consumption, which sounds really high, but I feel like in our minds when we think of carbs, we think of bread, we think of pasta, we think of, you know, all that good, like starchy, like potatoes and flour, you know, products and all of that kind of stuff. But really, carbs are any type of fruit, any type of vegetable. I mean, yeah, all that processed stuff too. Like, I freaking love marshmallow cream, and that is 0 fat, 0 protein, and only carbs. So that's exclusively a carb source, if that makes sense. So when I say that my carbs are super high, I personally don't tend to fill them with a bunch of bread and pasta. I mean, sometimes I do if that's my choice, but for the most part, I eat a lot of veggies and I eat a lot of fruit because volume eating, and I want to be full. I want to get as much like bang for my buck as I possibly can. So like in, I think like 12 spears of asparagus, there's like 3 carbs. And then in like a 2-ounce portion of a regular like pasta, there's like upwards of 40 to 50 carbs. So choices, like right choices, which also macros make you super aware of the nutrition content of food and help you to make more conscious choices in that regard too. So it actually cleaned up my diet a little bit, which is interesting because the people that resist IIFYM or flexible dieting are usually the people that are quick to say that you know, it's full of bad food or junk food and flexible dieters just eat crap. And the reason they say that, and the reason it's called flexible dieting, is because essentially you can fit anything into your diet. Like I mentioned, marshmallow fluff. I love it. I love making fluffernutters. That's pretty much usually my carb cap at the end of the night. I'll take a rice cake, which is like 1 gram of protein, 0 fat, and 10 carbs. Then I'll put 1 tablespoon of marshmallow fluff, which is 5 carbs. And then I'll usually put like either some protein peanut butter or lemon curd or something else on it. And that the lemon curd is 1 fat and 11 carbs. So as you're hearing, it's so far 1 gram of fat, like 31 grams of carbs, and like 1 gram of protein. So it's a carb source of processed carbs. Now, remember back like 15 minutes ago when I said that calories in versus calories out, that's the bottom line? Same thing with macros. Your body cannot determine what kind of carb it is. It can only determine that it is a carb. So it doesn't know if it's green beans or marshmallow fluff. All it knows is that it's a carb to be used as fuel in that way. Does that, I really hope it makes sense. I wish there was a way I could be like, does that make sense? And then it'd be like, yes, that makes sense. Or no, that doesn't make sense. But I can't. I don't know. So I'm just going to keep going. So, and your body can't tell. That's the point. So it doesn't really matter if you're filling your diet full of crap foods or clean foods. The whole point is just to hit a certain amount of protein grams a day, carb grams a day, and fat grams a day. And then also I track my fiber because I really want to hit a certain fiber goal, which I've mentioned before back in like my calorie counting video, that fiber is really important. It really helps keep things moving. And also if you have a fiber goal to hit, it really encourages a lot of those carbs to be used up as, like I said, fruit and veggies, because that's where you're going to get your natural fibers from. Really hope all of this makes sense. But anyway, the whole point of tracking macros, I mean, there's a few reasons why you would do it. Like I said, streamlining your body composition, really trying to lose fat while you gain muscle. But there are other reasons to do it too, like mentally. Like for me, I started tracking macros. Like I said, I found it extremely interesting during my course, but also I was kind of bored of calorie counting. Like it just gets really repetitive, and counting macros is almost like a game of Tetris. You know, how are all these foods going to come together so that I can hit this number spot on, which hardly ever happens. I really just try and be plus or minus like 3 grams or so, either way. But, you know, at the end of the night when it's like, okay, Karen, you have 5 grams of fat and 0 carbs and, you know, 12 grams of protein left, like, what are you going to eat? And then in my mind, all of a sudden it pops up like, oh, an egg. I can have a hard-boiled egg, or I can make like little scrambled eggs or something like that. That will make me be spot on. So you kind of start thinking about foods in a different way too. Like they become more numbers. I hope that makes sense. So boredom. Also, if you just in general, like I did when I was starting out, have no idea how much fat, carbs, or proteins you're consuming, it's a really good idea to just track them and kind of see where you're at. You might be really surprised. You might not. Maybe you're like, no, I know I eat a ton of protein because all you really consume is like meat and, you know, yogurt and eggs. That's like your diet. So you're like, no, I eat a lot of protein, I'm fine. But maybe you don't realize that the eggs have a good amount of fat in them. Yogurt can potentially have a good amount of fat in it, and so can meat. So maybe you're eating more fats than you realize. So that's a reason why too. And also just like in that same kind of note, if you can figure out the correct ratios for you depending upon your goals, like if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to maintain weight, if you're trying to gain weight because maybe you're in a bulking cycle and you really are trying to like make all the muscles and stuff, you can really become... It can really be tailored to your own personal body as opposed to just being like, yeah, I'll eat 1,200 calories and I'll lose weight, you know? Instead, you kind of get to make that adhere more to your lifestyle. As say you know that you love carbs, like carbs is like your life. So then you give yourself more carbs and you take away some protein or you take away some fat. Like you can adjust it according to you, which is really nice. And speaking of like 1,200 calories. One of the nice things about IIFYM, at least for me, is that I do actually consume more calories than I was previously, and now I am maintaining / losing a little bit, but maintaining my weight, and I'm at the same time gaining my muscle. And now how I know this is because I have like a digital scale that tracks my weight, body fat percent, water weight, and muscle mass, all of that, whatever, a crazy little digital scale. And while it might not be 100% accurate, I've been using it to track my body for the past 6 months. So the trend and the overall loss and then gain is accurate because I've been using the same method. Hopefully that makes sense. Another reason why you might want to try this is if you're working out like a boss in the gym and you're just killing it and you're not seeing any muscles. Maybe that's because your diet isn't actually supporting muscle growth. Like you're not taking in enough protein. Like I was saying, maybe your body you're working off so many calories, you're burning so many energy, you burn through all your carbs, and now you're burning through your muscle too, that you're trying so hard to work to gain, and you're actually burning it off in the gym. It's completely counterproductive, and you can be unintentionally just undoing all of your hard work that you're putting in. And that's extremely frustrating. So IIFYM or macro counting might be something that you want to look into for that. Another extremely good benefit to IIFYM or flexible dieting is it really, really cuts off the vicious cycle of restricting and binging. There is no need to restrict with IIFYM. Pretty much anything can fit into your diet if you plan for it. Like, I mean, really, if you're just somebody that suffers from having, really, really, what word am I looking for? Insatiable really, really insatiable cravings, like you really want that slice of pizza, but like you can't have it because that pizza is like 900 calories and it'll be like the only thing you can eat that day. With flexible dieting, you can fit it in. I mean, it'll still be like 900 calories worth, but you can look at the ratios and say, okay, this is going to be really high in fat and high in carbs, not as high in protein, so I'm going to eat like half of this, and then it'll be more moderate, and I can add in some, you know, whatever meat on top of it to up the protein grams. Like, you can kind of play with it and make it fit. That's why it's called IIFYM. If it fits your macros. Like, it's all about you. It's supposed to be like customized dieting. And it cuts off, so it kind of cuts off that, you know, that need to restrict and binge, because you can determine, you know, like, I can't really, like, I don't know, like I said, if you know you love carbs, then you have a higher carb ratio. If you know you love fats, you have a higher fat ratio. It's just really freeing mentally also, just to have somebody be like, nothing's off limits. All of a sudden you're like, wait, what? Like, nothing? And you don't feel that need to freaking just eat everything because somebody's telling you you can't. Like, it's like almost innate in us, where it's like if somebody tells you you can't do something, you want to do it so much more. So I'm telling you, if you follow this diet, if you follow this lifestyle, you can fit in a fluffernutter every single night. You can have a chocolate candy bar if you want to. You can, you know, choose to have the frozen yogurt, all carbs, or you can choose to have like a low-fat ice cream. You can choose to have, I mean, you're still dieting, and it really depends on, well, dieting if that's your goal, weight loss. And it really depends on, you know, how many macros you have to play with, how elaborate your food can get. But in general, just the mindset is much, much, much less restrictive. Even more so than calorie counting for me, because when I was calorie counting, like I said, I was on less calories, but also I just wasn't aware of, like, where the calories were coming from in my food. I didn't understand that there's, the reason it is a set amount of calories is because it's made up of a set amount of carbs, a set amount of protein, a set amount of fat, and all of those add up to this calorie. But maybe I don't want 100 calories worth of just fat. I hope this makes sense. So, for me personally, like I said, when I started counting macros, that was in January, I had a 24.5% body fat. And now it's August, so it's like 7.5 months later. I feel like I've given my body ample time to kind of adjust to this and show me some true results and some true trends. And in that time, my body fat has gone from 24.5 January to now 22.1. So that's, like a 2.4% drop, which doesn't sound that big, like 2.4%, but it is when you're only dealing with a smaller amount of fat. So 22.1%, and then I don't know what my muscle mass was in January, because that's not something that I had written down. The earliest that I started tracking that was about a month or 6 weeks later, and my muscle mass percent was at 32.3%, and currently it's at 36.2%, so it's gone up nearly 3%. So body fat down 2.4%, and muscle mass up 2.9%. So that's excellent. And in the meantime, my weight has pretty much maintained. I mean, I fluctuated a little bit, but I'm right in my goal window still. My goal window for me is 120 to 125. And right now, currently, when I jumped on the scale this morning, 123.8. I'm completely happy with that. And I'm just really more focusing on, like I say, body composition, body fat, muscle mass versus the actual weight number on the scale, which is also something that IIFYM opened me up to or made me realize or whatever. So I know all of this can be confusing. There's resources out there on the internet, you know, to read about. IIFYM.com, great resource. Just Google it. If you just Google flexible dieting or what is a macro or tracking macros or anything like that, I'm sure it'll go into much more detail and more sciencey or whatever. This is more just like reasons why you might want to consider this and kind of like what it's done for me. This is the way that I plan on helping people to achieve their fitness or weight loss goals. Through macro counting, through flexible dieting. I don't want to encourage people to restrict themselves. I really think that this can be like a maintainable lifestyle because you don't have to cut anything out. All around, it has been a really great experience for me, and that's something that I want to pass on to others and to teach others. I'm sorry that this video went on and on and on, and I've been rambling and talking super fast, and I'm sure somebody's going to say that in the comments below. But yeah, so macro counting, IIFYM, flexible dieting, right in there, the business. If you have any questions, write them in the comments down below. Go ahead and follow me. Made me think of Office Space. I'm going to need you to go ahead and follow me on Instagram at WonderWoman.fit. Or add me on MyFitnessPal, WonderWoman_fit to see exactly what I'm eating. And when you look at my diary, you will see I have a meal that's labeled sweet tooth, and throughout the day, anything sweet that I eat, I just put it in there. And a lot of times, my calories from there, it'll be like a third of my day. But when you look at the nutritional information of it, it's like super high in protein, super low in fat, and like moderate carbs, because that's my macro ratio for myself. I'm low fat, moderate carb, higher protein. So I've figured out ways to make and fit in a lot of sweet things because that's the type of person I am. I like sweet over savory. You don't have to like sweet over savory to follow IIFYM. The whole point is it's you, it's your macros, it's your choices, it's your diet, it's your lifestyle. I don't want to be like, I could count macros forever, but for the foreseeable future, I'm in it. I like it. I'm doing it. So yeah, like I said, this is really how I plan on helping people in the future. Still working on getting my coaching website up and offering like nutritional packages. I will have one that'll just like calculate out macros for somebody and help them with their ratios depending upon their goals. And like, you know, like I said, if they told me like they have a big sweet tooth or they love carbs or whatever it is, to help them kind of determine that, because there are a lot of like macro calculators out there online and stuff, but they're super generic and they're just using like basic algorithms and things like that instead of really taking into account a person's lifestyle and their actual individual goals and needs. So I really think that, you know, finding somebody to actually calculate out your macros that knows what they're doing, that has like some sort of education on it, can be incredibly helpful. I'm not saying that you have to come, you know, to me or whatever, although you can. I'm just saying that it really can be invaluable. So yeah, I hope you found this helpful. Give it a like if you did. Leave some questions or comments down below. I really hope you're still with me to the end here. It's like 30 minutes later. Shut the hell up, Karen. Bye.